Hello, my name is Martha Johnson. I'm a retired teacher and principal from Las Vegas, and it's such a treat to get to read this book to you today. The book we're going to read is Pinocchio. Pinocchio. Pinocchio originally was written in about 1880 by an Italian author by the name of Carlo Collodi, and that's something that I found out this afternoon. And I've always liked Pinocchio, as you can tell in the background. I even have a puppet of Pinocchio, and of course, Pinocchio was a puppet. So let's start our book. This is the cover of the book. There was once a poor wood carver named Geppetto who decided to make himself a fine puppet. Starting with the face, he carved the eyes, nose, and mouth. But no sooner was Geppetto done than the eyes shot him an angry look, the mouth burst out laughing, and the nose began to grow longer and longer and longer. Geppetto tried to whittle the nose down to size with little luck. Sighing, he continued carving the rest of the puppet. How grand it looked once it was done. Geppetto decided to call it Pinocchio. First, Geppetto taught Pinocchio how to walk. The puppet had great difficulty, for his wooden legs were very stiff. But in no time at all, Pinocchio not only walked on his own, but ran straight out the door and down the street. He was running away. Pinocchio ran until he came to a small forest. There he heard a creak, creak, creak sound. It was a cricket. "Listen to me, Pinocchio," the cricket said. "Little boys who run away and don't obey their parents will never be happy." And with that, the cricket disappeared into the forest. What a silly cricket, thought Pinocchio. What does he know about anything? And he stretched, lay down, and took a nap. When Pinocchio awoke, he was very hungry. So he headed for the village and rang the bell of the nearest house. "What do you want at this hour?" mumbled a sleepy man from a second-floor window. "Please, could you help a poor, hungry boy?" said Pinocchio. "Just a minute, dear lad," said the man. Pinocchio waited, his mouth watering. "Put out your hands," the man yelled down a moment later, and the next thing Pinocchio knew, a basin of ice-cold water came pouring down all over him. Maybe the cricket was right, thought Pinocchio, so he headed back to Geppetto's cottage. Cold, tired, and hungrier still, he fell asleep by the stove. But in the morning, when he awoke and jumped up to greet Geppetto, poor Pinocchio fell to the floor. His wooden feet had burned away on the stove. Geppetto was so glad to see Pinocchio. "Now you must promise not to use these feet to run away," he said as he fastened new feet to Pinocchio's legs. "You must use them to walk to school like a good boy." "Of course, Papa," said Pinocchio, and he headed off to school with a brand new spelling book that Geppetto had bought by selling his one and only coat. Pinocchio decided he would be a good boy. But as he walked along, he saw signs for a puppet theater that had come to town. "I can always go to school later," he thought. "It's not every day that a puppet theater is in town." And so he sold his spelling book to a peddler for the price of a ticket. At the theater, he had so much fun that he jumped right up on stage with the puppets. When the puppet master saw Pinocchio up on the stage, he was very upset. "He doesn't belong here." "But look, he's made of wood," he shouted. "I will use him for firewood." Pinocchio begged the puppet master to spare him. He told him how much his kind father would miss him and how Geppetto had sold his coat so that Pinocchio could have a spelling book for school. Now the puppet master too had a son, and so he was touched by the story. He not only let Pinocchio go, but he gave him 5 gold coins to buy his father a new coat. Pinocchio ran off and soon came upon a fox and a cat. "Your father is looking everywhere for you, Pinocchio," said the fox, "but he's cold, for he has no coat." "Well, I'm about to buy him the finest coat with these 5 gold coins," said Pinocchio. "Oh, that is not nearly enough for a coat," said the cat. "But if you bury those coins in the field of miracles, a tree will grow that bears hundreds of gold coins." That night, Pinocchio went to the field of miracles. Suddenly, he heard a great rustling in the grass. 2 pairs of eyes gleamed at him from the darkness. Pinocchio swiftly hid the gold pieces under his tongue, but the thieves were quick. One of them shot his arm straight into Pinocchio's mouth. Pinocchio bit down hard and felt not a hand, but a furry cat's paw. The creature howled in pain and disappeared from sight. The next morning, Pinocchio came upon a small cottage. A beautiful blue-haired fairy opened the door. Pinocchio told her all about the fox and the cat, and she asked him what had happened to the coins. Now, the coins were in Pinocchio's pocket, but he said that he had lost them. No sooner had he said this than his nose grew and grew and grew longer yet. When the blue fairy felt Pinocchio had maybe learned his lesson, she called in some woodpeckers who pecked on his nose until it was back down to its former size. From that day on, whenever Pinocchio told a lie, his nose would grow and grow. On the way to school the next day, Pinocchio ran into a boy named Lampwick. Lampwick was a mischievous, lazy, and very bad little boy. Pinocchio admired him greatly. "Come with me," Lampwick cried. "I'm on my way to Playtime Land, where there's no school. All anyone does there is play games and eat cake and candy." How could Pinocchio miss out on so much fun? Playtime Land was everything that Lampwick had promised. Pinocchio wished he could stay forever. But when Pinocchio awoke the following day, he scratched his head and was surprised to find it soft and furry. He ran to the mirror and saw that he was turning into a donkey. Pinocchio began to cry. If only he had listened to the cricket and gone to school like a good little boy. A musician decided to make Pinocchio's donkey hide into a drum. First, he tied Pinocchio to a long rope and flung him into the ocean to drown him. As luck would have it, a school of fish swam by and ate off Pinocchio's ears and tail. Once again, he was a wooden puppet and of no use to the musician. Greatly relieved, Pinocchio swam and swam until he came to an island. On the island, Pinocchio found himself in Busy Bee Town. And whom should he meet there but the Blue Fairy? "Please, Blue Fairy, can you help me?" said Pinocchio. "I don't want to be a puppet any longer. I want to be a real little boy, and I want to find my father." "Then you must learn not to lie, Pinocchio," said the fairy, "and you must go to school, as real little boys do." "Oh, I will," said Pinocchio, and this time he really meant it. He said farewell to the kind fairy. He headed down the road and soon came upon a crowd of people peering out over the sea and pointing. "What's going on?" Pinocchio asked a fisherwoman. "It's Geppetto," she said. "He set out to find his son, but a terrible storm is brewing, and surely he will sink, or else the whale will gobble him up." Determined to save his father, Pinocchio dove into the water. Being made of wood, he floated easily all day and all night, and the next day he saw what looked like a large island not far ahead. As Pinocchio floated closer, he saw 2 rows of large, sharp teeth pointing straight at him. This was no island. This was the whale. Pinocchio tried to swim away, but the whale opened his mouth wide, and in went Pinocchio. Down, down, farther and farther went Pinocchio into the inky darkness of the whale. Soon he landed deep within the whale's belly, and there before his eyes, sitting at a table eating his dinner by candlelight, was Geppetto, his father. The two embraced, exchanged their stories, and finished off the provisions from a ship the whale also had swallowed. "Oh, Papa," said Pinocchio when they were done eating, "there is no time to lose. We must escape." With that, he took his father on his back, and they swam back up to the whale's mouth, for he could hear the whale snoring and knew he was asleep. Quietly, quietly, Pinocchio and Geppetto made their way over the whale's tongue, over his horrid teeth, out his open mouth, and out to the open sea. Once they were safely home, Pinocchio got a job with a nearby farmer and took good care of Geppetto. From time to time, he would come across the cricket and the blue fairy, and he would tell them how happy he was now and how thankful to be back with his father. One night, when Pinocchio came home from work, he found a brand new suit of clothes on his bed and a purse full of gold coins inside. Inside the purse was a note that read, "Dearest Pinocchio, your truly kind heart has made me so proud of you. Please accept these gifts and know that we shall meet again. Until that time, I grant your dearest wish. Love, the Blue Fairy." Pinocchio put on the new suit and ran to the mirror. Staring back at him, he was a real, true, smiling, brown-haired boy. "Father," he cried to Geppetto, "look at me, I'm a boy." And sure enough, he was. Pinocchio's wish had come true. Thanks so much for listening. I sure enjoyed reading to you. Bye now.